All right, friends, welcome back to Healedish. Today I am here with Kayley. I came across her story on TikTok and you may have seen it yourself. She had a wedding day that she was not expecting, but she ended up making the most of it with her family and friends. So thank you so much for agreeing to come on and share your story. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. And it's just crazy that I'm it's an amazing story that's carried on still after it and years after. And just thank you for having me and still helping me share my story.
Yeah, of course. So how long ago was this? And then also if you want to get into how you guys met and the backstory there.
Of course. So we were due to get married. So the actual wedding day, open bracket, close bracket, wedding day happened on the 16th of September 2022. So we had met the November 2018. We met on a day that's called Beaujolais Day in Swansea in Wales, and it's a day that we celebrate the opening of the Beaujolais French wine. It's an excuse to have all day drinking, get dressed up and enjoy. So he came from South England, came to Swansea for the day to have this day. Met him there, was meant to be a one-night stand, didn't turn into a one-night stand. It turned into...
Why is that?
Well,
was it just like you really enjoyed talking to him? Like what made it turn into something more?
Yeah, very much that. So I had just been probably go over a year or so single. And I was enjoying my single time. So the girls can tell you on the actual Beaujolais day, we had a meal and everything. And all the girls were in a relationship. I was the only one who wasn't. And they were like, oh, you'll find... I was like, absolutely not. I do not need anyone. Then
they're like, go get it.
Yeah. And I met him. And then we went out for breakfast the day after. Then he was going back then to Portsmouth, where he's from. And I was like, okay, yeah, we'll just keep in touch or whatever. And none of us kind of dropped the conversation. We carried it on. And then he came back to Swansea because he was like, why not? Then I went down to Portsmouth. And then this was in November. And then between November and the end of December, he was like, I really like how this is going. And I was like, me too. We got together. And then come like March time, he moved into a flat with me and my sister that we lived in with us, and had just kind of, we were in the kind of mindset that the worst thing is if this doesn't go anywhere, then he can move back to Portsmouth and I'll carry on my life, because I was still happy being single at that time. So I was kind of threw caution to the wind. We hit it off. And he got to know my family, and my sister loved him. We lived with my parents at one time. We built like what I thought was a really healthy and strong relationship. Like my sister would agree with this. Like we hardly ever argued. We were very much kind of communicative towards each other. Like I would give him many kind of opportunities and spaces so he could be free to voice his own opinion, because I'm very much that person that I quite strong in my emotional intelligence. So when I can see somebody, well, I thought I was anyway at the time, but...
No, but I can see it. I can see that you're very emotionally intelligent. Yeah.
And I kind of like let him have his own space, which is why like on the wedding day, when I originally found out that he'd gone for a walk or people hadn't heard from him, he was a bit like needed some space. I was like, absolutely give him his space. Like that is fine. People... Like,
you're amazing.
It's a chaotic day. I needed some space on that day. Like the girls knew that when I wanted to go to my like bedroom and have 5 minutes just to kind of like wind down, because there's a lot of pressure for one day. Like you got family members you haven't seen for donkey's years, and you want to look perfect. You want the weather to be perfect. You want the food. You want everyone to enjoy. You spent so much money. There's so much pressure on one day, and so I understood that. And then. So like, but prior to that, so that why it's like throughout our whole relationship, we'd had what I thought was a very healthy relationship. But then after, obviously, I think it's easier looking outside in than inside out when you're in a relationship. What I thought was very healthy, there was probably a few moments that I could probably recall back on now, but it was complete and a shock that he left me on my wedding day.
Yeah. So how did the talks of marriage even start? Was it something that both of you guys seemed really into? And how was the proposal and everything like that?
So my mum had been married twice and was with my dad, and my dad was still with his ex during my mum and dad's relationship. So he's still married to his ex, because my dad and his ex-wife were actually, it was a very weird situation, but very comfortable with it. My mum was fine. They were separated for 30 odd years. Neither of them at the time wanted to apply for divorce because it was very expensive at the time. But then soon enough, so I had known marriage was always kind of like can be quite complicated. So I took it very seriously, as in, if I want to get married, it was because I was doing it for the right reasons, that there was somebody like I wanted to be with for the rest of my life and be a wife. That was kind of what I was looking forward to, more so than the wedding itself. And he had come from a family where his mum and dad had separated in a divorce. His dad cheated on his mum. They're quite toxic in their relationship. They don't speak. They can't be in a room together. So he was very open that he wanted that picture perfect family that came from a very strong relationship. When they had children, it would be because they were husband and wife together. He had that in his mind. So when it came to the actual engagement and proposal, it wasn't expected at all, because there wasn't like a timeline that we had. You know, that people kind of want to set timelines. There was no timeline at all. And so he had originally planned to propose, I found out after, during a Star is Born, when we went through a drive-through in London. But because I was absolutely sobbing, like my mascara was down my face.
Did you say Star is Born?
A Star is Born, yeah, with Lady Gaga.
Gosh. Oh. That movie, when I saw that movie, I like went into depression for like an hour. I was sobbing on my bed. Like, I don't know that any movie has affected me that much.
Her and Bradley were just iconic together. And like the dog scene at the end of the garage always breaks. Like, I can't watch it. I can't even speak about it now. So I was like viscerally sobbing, like, and he turned to me and was like, okay, maybe this is not the time when I've got like I'm like literally sweating because I'm crying so much at this film. And then like the Tuesday after, he was like, do you want to come for a walk after work? And I finished work around like 8 p.m. in the UK, and I was like, and it's like kind of winterish time, so it's normally quite dark. I was like, I'm happy just to go home.
You're like, no, thank you.
Like, I really don't want to do that. And he was like, no, please, I really want to go see this lighthouse in Buryport. And I was like, that's really sweet, but I just want to go home and sleep. And he was like, please. I was like, absolutely fine. So I got in the car with him. We drove then to Buryport, and then the tide was also in, so we couldn't go to the actual lighthouse. And I was like a little bit fuming at the same time, because I was like, I'm really tired. We've driven 40 minutes to go see a lighthouse that we can't even go and see. It's raining. Right, let's just get out of the car, have a 5-minute walk, and let's get back to the car. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. Walked around. I was soaking. I was like, oh my God, I just want to sleep. And then I got back to the car, and I saw there was a box on my seat, and I was just so distracted in the box. There was like, so A Star is Born was our favourite movie. So there was a DVD case. He wrote little notes on like the quotes from the movie that we loved. There was the soundtrack. He wrote lyrics from the songs that we loved. There was like other bits. So there was a candle that said Wedding Bells. I opened it, sniffed it, went, oh, it's not my favourite smell, but thank you so much, and put it back in. I didn't even see it.
Not my favourite.
No, I was like, thank you, but can we exchange it? Because I was really, really tired at the time. I wasn't taking note on any, like, I took note of what he wrote, and I was just like, when I'm just so tired, I was just, I can't take it in what you've done. But I was like, thank you so much. I'll read it when I get home properly and I'm dry. And he's like, no, please, like, read the 2 cards at the top. I was like, okay, read the first card, and the card was so thoughtful about like how much he loved me, our relationship, everything. And it said to be continued. And then on card 2 it said, will you marry me? Turned, and there was the ring. So that's like a moment that was stuck with me, going, that's how I thought he was so thoughtful, like all those little moments. And it wasn't just the proposal. So he'd write like little notes around the house. He bought me a book that said 1,000 Reasons Why I Love You, and he hand wrote notes in there, like did things and everything like that. Like, so he was a very thoughtful person throughout the whole relationship. So there was no like detachment, no kind of sign as such. but I thought until like maybe a few weeks or four before the run up to the wedding. So prior to kind of the run up to the wedding, like the closeness, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going back to the proposal, I think what's so funny is I just heard a podcast the other day and they were talking about a story like this where the girl was mad about the proposal and she really didn't want to go to this one spot.
Yeah.
So he ended up taking her to this lesser good spot and then she was upset that the proposal wasn't good enough. And I find it so funny that I feel like a lot of the time girls are not in the best mood during the proposal because the guys are doing this weird thing to try to get them somewhere.
Yeah.
And that happened with my ex-husband. Like, I really didn't want to go for a walk on this bridge. And he was like, please, let's go for a walk on this bridge. And I mean, I guess we got divorced, so maybe not, thank God. But in the moment, I was like, oh, thank God I agreed because he had like 20 of our friends on this bridge to surprise us. And what if it was like Jubilee was in a bad mood? She refused to come. You know,
they sometimes can pick the really strangest moments. It was just because like I was in work. I had no makeup on in work. I was like in a black vest at the time because I was like heavily, sorry to be visual, like on my like period as well at the time. So I was exhausted to come like I think any girls know it. Like when it's nighttime, when you're on your period, it's nighttime. There's no
get
walking.
me home.
Yes, I want my hot water bottle. I need my blanket and pillow, and let's just chuck a film on. So at that point I was just like very overstimulated, but like after it I was very thankful for the thought that went into it, but at the time I was very kind of like sweaty and overwhelmed.
Yeah. And I think you saying that there didn't feel like there were too many red flags at first too, because he was so thoughtful. My ex, I mean, everybody's like, how did you marry this guy? But he was the king of thoughtful behavior. I mean, when we were married, there was a time where I think I turned 25 and he hid 25 letters throughout our apartment. They were all love notes. And he was constantly doing like treasure hunts throughout our city and taking me places. And it's like, you feel like, well, he really cares. He really cares and he loves me. And yeah, you don't really second guess it when you're in it.
Absolutely. And it makes the deception even worse because you're just like, how? Where, like how? Have you seen, there's a TikTok trend going on at the moment where there's like men the day before they break up with you and they're like, I can't wait to have babies with you. When do you want to get married?
Yes.
Or how many kids do you want? That was us, it sounds like, and then all of a sudden you're like, what's going on here?
And then it's like the next day they're like breaking up with you. Yeah. I think is the trend, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. That trend is the epitome of that.
What happened?
Yeah.
So what did your family think when you called them and told them that you were engaged? Because I guess you said it wasn't super planned. Y'all were just,
it wasn't
he kind of just did this.
Yeah. So when I went to see A Star Is Born, the girls after was like, oh, Kayley, what's going on? Because they thought that they had an inkling that's when he was going to propose to me. Obviously that didn't happen. So they were like, oh, what's going on?
Which at least he knew not to.
Yes.
I was thinking, oh no, is he about to propose while you're crying?
And then then obviously a couple of days after, I think like around, because obviously it's late at night, I messaged the girls and luckily I lived a couple of doors down from my best friend. So she came running in. My sister was also lived with us as well. I was living with my mum and my dad as well. But he had told my mum and dad and showed them the ring before proposing to me. So my mum kind of already knew. And then so we were all just happy, we were all like crying. I was jumping for joy. So everyone was loving that moment, and it was just incredible, like what you would want, really. But yes, because actually at the time he was in and out of jobs throughout the whole relationship. I've had a steady job, still in the same job I've always been in. So before proposed to me, he stayed down where he came from for like a good month or so to work with his stepdad and help him out. And the purpose of that was to help put money towards then savings for us to get a house and eventually and whatever. So I contributed quite a lot to the savings at that point, and I was like, okay, you've said obviously you're going to earn this amount. What are you happy to contribute? And he was like, oh, I'm happy to contribute this amount. And I was like, perfect. Let me know, and I can put it in the pot for us. Fine. And then towards the end of it, he was like, oh, babe, I haven't got any of that money now. I unfortunately didn't make that much. I can't contribute. And I was like, okay, absolutely fine.
Was this for the wedding?
This was before the proposal. So then later, when he did propose, he told me it's because he bought the engagement ring out of the money. He told me that he switched the sapphire out and put a diamond in. He got to engrave hearts in the side and so on. He said he got it changed and whatever. So I was like, oh my God, that's like so thoughtful again. And then after the wedding day and whatever, I obviously still had my engagement ring. My best friend was like, okay, like, I didn't want to tell you this, but I've always thought that the ring is fake. Never told me, but she's like, I've always thought the ring is fake. Do you mind if I go and get, because I need to, because we found out obviously little things throughout the after. She was like, can I just go and check this for you? And I was like, do you know what, like, I just do it. And she found it was worth like £30.
Oh
yes.
My gosh.
Yeah.
I don't even know how I would process that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, did you ever think it was fake? I feel
Absolutely
like I don't
not.
know the difference.
No,
honestly.
Same here. Absolutely not. Like, for me, it was, I told people more the story about like him removing the sapphire, adding the diamond in, doing the heart. I told that story rather than it being real, if that makes sense. So to then understand, like, to then start to process that story was probably fake.
Well, it was. And where did all the money go?
Exactly. And for me, like, I'm honestly the person, you could get me, if someone's going to propose to me, you could give me a ring from Primark like, and that's a budget shop like Target, for example, out in America. I don't care, but it's what thought have you put behind it and why, and that's what means more to me. And the fact he made this, like, it was looking back thinking that he's made this story up and believed this story so well to then tell me, for me to fully believe it. It just, that's then after the wedding and everything, that's what kind of were moments that made me kind of go, okay, this person was quite deceptive, was false, and everything.
You start to think what all was a lie then, because he told it so easily and convincingly. And then you're going around and telling your friends and family the thoughtfulness that he put into this ring. And I guess your friend, I mean, if I was your friend and I thought it was fake, I wouldn't have said anything either.
No, that's
such a crazy thing to say.
Yeah. Because she, like my mother, so my mother and her are very much into jewelry. They love gemstones and everything. They would always talk about it. So she said that one of the, like, when she looked at it, she could tell by the look of it, and she was like, I'm never going to tell you because it doesn't matter. She knew it didn't matter to me, but she wanted to tell me in the end because I was like, obviously in believing this person to be like this thoughtful person. So I was grieving this loss of a person that I thought was so thoughtful, cared for me and whatever. She was like, okay, I need to start bringing a bit of reality to the situation now for her, so then she can process the loss and kind of start to put these two people together as one.
Yeah. Wow. So were there any other red flags leading up to the wedding? I know you said a few weeks before the wedding you started to notice some stuff.
Yeah. So I spoke about it on my TikTok, but like I'll go through a bit more in depth. So on the stag do, he booked to go to Cardiff. He was friends with my partner, my best friend's boyfriends, basically invited them all, and even so Jodie, my maid of honour, her husband was one of the groomsmen. So they went to the stag do all together, and there was two men called Tom, and one of them, the Tom, is my best friend Hannah's partner, and he's not a small man. He is quite a big man, and but he has struggled with his weight throughout. Like, he's lost 9 stone, put stones back on, and he has always fluctuated with it. And I don't know how sensitive it is to him and their relationship. So when on the way back, Jodie picked up Chrissy, her husband, she'd rung me and gone, Kayley, I need to let you know that your Callum had been calling Tom behind his back Fat Tom. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, yeah, because there was 2 Toms. He was kept on referring to him as Fat Tom. And I was like, where's that come from? And she was like, I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but Chrissy's let me know this was what was going on. And I was just devastated because Hannah is my like very, very good, like incredible best friend. Gone to uni, met in college. We'd built a good life together, myself, like with my friendship group. And she's the type of person that will hold grudges, understandably, because of like things have impacted her. And I was then going like, oh my God, she's going to hate him. She's going to hate my husband to be. How can I ever defend my husband? And then the day after, like I'd kind of all night been just like racked with like anxiety because I was like, oh my God, how do I bring this up? But then also I don't want Hannah to find out.
To tell her or to talk to him?
Talk to him first.
Okay.
I was like, how do I talk to him first? How do I bring this up so he understands? But then also like, God, what if Hannah finds out before I'm able to tell her? And then I picked him up with his two friends from the train station, and all night I'd just been kind of like sitting on this, and it kind of built up, and I kind of addressed it when his two friends were in the car, because I also wanted to speak to his friends as well, because if they had been calling him fat, I wanted them to know that you can't call my friends boyfriends that at all, like anybody. And so I spoke to Callum. I said, oh, I've heard that you were referring to Hannah's Tom as Fat Tom. Why was that? And he was like, oh, because it was two Toms. You know what boys are like. And I was like, no, I don't know what boys are like. That's mean. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, you were bullying my best friend's boyfriend. Like, you actually behind his back bullying him. You wouldn't say it to his face. And he was like, but you call your friend Hannah Oksana. So we call my friend Hannah Oksana because she is a powerhouse of a woman that will protect anybody. So this is Tom's girlfriend, my best friend. Like, when we were going out to like Benidorm and there's like reps on the street trying to pull you in, she'll like run through them like an ox because she's like, I'm protecting. So that's why we call her Oksana. Nothing to do with...
But that's a positive thing.
Yes.
So him trying to say, that's just saying that she's strong and she protects the group.
Exactly. And we call it, she's happy in that. And if anyone called her an ox because of her size or anything like that, then I would be like, no, that's not, what are you doing? So she had been fully a part of that. So then that's how I explained it to him. And I kind of then got even furious. I said, you've put me in a place where I can never defend you to my best friend. That's not a place you should put me in, because I can't even begin to like understand or justify your words to her. There's no justification for it. It's just mean. And then after it, he was kind of upset with me for a good while. He didn't really speak to me much. He then drove his two best friends home, and normally back to Portsmouth. And normally I kind of go with him, and I work then from home down there. But then he didn't even invite me down there. He was like, I'm in the car already driving them home, and he was like, oh, I'm driving my friends home. I was like, oh, why didn't you ask me to come? I normally come with you. So that was kind of the kind of the moment I was like, oh, I didn't realize that was a side to him, like this kind of vicious, mean side. And then
Did he seem like an empathetic person before? Because obviously calling somebody Fat Tom or using bullying type language to describe somebody, was that so out of left field, or had you seen him be like that?
Completely. So he was very much like a nerdy boy in school. So even his prom photo, he's on a moped, and he himself was actually quite bigger than what he was when he met me. So he had recently then lost weight when he had met me as well, and I'm a bigger person as well. I'm a curvy woman, so weight was always in our relationship. So it was very left field when he was calling somebody like fat in a mean aspect. But yeah, he was a nerdy person. His friends, for example, they kind of like little podcasts together they created about, like, they called themselves Nerds of Movies and things like that. So he was very kind of a quirky, nerdy type of guy. So I didn't kind of see ever that viciousness come out or come to light. But obviously that was the first kind of what I could see instant I saw that, and I was like, oh, that's very much a complete 180 to his normal personality, and it's very, very different.
Yeah. So did you end up talking to your friend?
So I've never talked to my friend personally about it now because she already hates him, and I don't want to cause her any more pain, if that makes sense. So she might have listened to podcasts when I've talked about it before, or whatever, but we've never talked about it personally because I don't need also Tom to know that either. From my if he finds out about it, he finds out about it, but I just never felt like, because I was obviously always wrapped up in that situation after the wedding, and then it took a while, and it's always kind of been 2 years later, so I never really see the point to kind of go, oh, by the way, Callum was calling Tom.
And she hates him anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
exactly. She's in his burn book.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when he came back from dropping off his friends, was he still acting weird, or y'all were living together, right? So
yes.
He had to come back home.
Yes, he's still quite silent and everything like that. But I think after a couple of days, he was fine. And there was also, after he proposed to me, like a year or so after, I found out that he lied about his age. Yes.
Ooh.
Only 1 year difference. So when I met him in the 2018, he said that he was 21 but he was actually 20 and I was 23 at the time. And I was like, when I first met him, I was like, oh God, I've never normally gone for a younger guy. But I was like at the time, because it's like, I thought it was a one night stand. I was like, why not? And then I was over his nan's at the time, and he was gone to the shop or whatever. I was with his auntie and his nan. And we were just somehow talking about, because we'd just booked a trip to Las Vegas to go see my friend get married. And I put in all his details. And she was like, oh, just to make sure you've got his right date of birth now. I said, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah, his right date of birth is not 1997, it's 1998. And what? She's like, yeah, it's 1998, not 1997. I was like, what? And I went back into the booking, and he had changed it. I was like,
oh my
what's
gosh.
going on? And then he returned back home. I spoke to him, and he was like, yeah, this was like a good, like nearly 3 years a bit into the relationship at that point. And I was like, why have you lied about your age? And he was like, it got wrapped up. It was never a good time. I was like, but I've thrown you a 22nd birthday party, a 23rd birthday party.
That's what I was going to say. So every birthday, he's like, yes, I am in fact turning 22.
Yeah, exactly. And on his 21st birthday, which I thought was his 22nd, he was actually in a Camp America, because he'd been Camp America a couple of years before. So I was like, enjoy your birthday out there. Have a lovely time, fine. And then his mum wrote on his Facebook, happy 21st birthday, can finally drink whilst you're out in the Camp America. And I went, wrong. I was like, babe, your mum's got your age wrong. What's going on here? And he was like, yeah, my mum. And he so his mum had a very nervous breakdown at one point. So he was like, my mum forgets things really badly. She's forgotten about my age. So, and it's just weird now.
That would have been the time to come clean.
I know.
So that was my question, is the drinking age in Wales 21?
No, 18.
Well, then why even lie in the first place? Here in the States, it's 21. So in my mind, I was like, well, maybe he felt bad that he was drinking and he shouldn't be drinking.
I honestly do not know why. It was honestly a crazy, crazy time. But after it, I chose to forgive him, because I was like, it's only 1 year's difference. But I was like, at the time, it was obviously naive of me to forgive him that easily. But I loved him. I was like, okay, that's fine. It's 1 year. And then I threw him a 23 again party. So he had 23. So we threw him a 23 again party. Made a joke.
Did you tell your friends?
Yeah, I rang my sister, and I was like, he's not 23, he's 22. And she was like, who now? I was like, Callum, he's 22, not 23. And she was like, you're lying. And I said, no, he's lied about his age. And she was like, Kayley, that's really weird. I was like, I know, but and then I was like, justify. I was like, he was scared. He didn't know when to bring it up. And I could justify a little bit of that, because I could put the emotion to it, if that makes sense. So I can see a little bit of it. I don't get it entirely, but at the time, I would have justified anything he'd done.
Yeah, and 3 years into a relationship is not nothing. 3 years is a long time.
Yes.
So I would feel at that point
And for
I
one
don't know.
year.
If it's a year and we've been together 3 years and there's literally no other red flags, I would probably think, well,
Exactly.
that's the stupidest thing that you could have ever done. But I
Yeah.
guess people do stupid things.
Yeah, that was honestly, that's what my thought process was. And it was just because, like, we'd obviously been proposed to at that time. The wedding had been booked. I got my wedding dress, got everything. So that was also a part of that decision making. We'd been solid in our decision of that wedding at that point. So that was all of it. And like the other kind of argument now that I recall back on and go, do you know what was actually really, really weird and shows the dynamic maybe of their family that has a bit of impact on his decision making. So I had bought a new car. I was going to buy a new car, and my car was called Rita 1 Litre. She was incredible. She was a red Coaster.
I love your names for things.
Yeah, I call everything something. And I was like, okay, do you want to take Rita and then I'll get a new, because I'm getting a new car. He's like, oh, perfect. And then he told his mum, and his mum was like, no, don't let Kayley give you this car. I'll lend you £800 so you can get your own car and then you can pay me back. And I was like, but why would I sell my car for around £800 for you to lend £800 off of your mother that you've got to pay back when you can have a car that's just passed its MOT, so was roadworthy, nothing wrong with it, and I'm giving it to you for free. Like, here's the logbook. I'll sign over the name. I have it. And
which is a huge gift. Oh my gosh, cars are so expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Because at the time, again, he didn't have a job, but he wanted a car to do the interviews and to say that he had a car to go, because that was one of the blockers that he had. He didn't have a car. So I was like, perfect. I'm getting a new car anyway. Have Rita. She's brilliant, and look after her.
She's brilliant.
I loved my first car. And we had a full-blown argument over it, because I was like, I just can't see your justification in why you want to take money off your mother to pay her back and be in debt to her when I'm giving you a car for free. Even to the point where my sister came in and said, Callum, like, I'm sorry, but I don't get your thought process here. And
well, especially when he doesn't have a job. It's not like he has the luxury of saying, I'm making all of this money. And I'm wondering, why did his mom not want him to take it?
I don't know. I have so his dad, after the wedding, I don't know how true it is, but apparently his mum offered him money to not marry me. Yes. Yeah. Actually, I haven't spoken about this on my TikTok. I actually probably should, but yeah.
That is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, and I just thought it's in movies that happens. But
maybe he got money when he didn't marry you.
Oh, God. If he didn't get at least £100,000, then anything less, I don't see why.
Oh my gosh.
But no, But I think,
how did you find that out?
His dad told me, but then his dad and his mum are very, they have a very
contentious.
Yes,
you said, right?
Yeah. They don't have a good dynamic. So I took it with a bit of pinch of salt, but I can believe it a little bit because his family were working class originally, but they were very kind of upper middle class, and I'm very working class. So I live in what we call a council house. So it's a government house. My mother was disabled. We had 8 other siblings. So we're very, very working class people, and my personality is that. I don't lift my finger up when I'm drinking tea. I don't even drink tea, but that I'm who you get. I'm salt of the earth kind of person, and I think it's very different dynamic. His family were very, they'd built what they had built from working class position, but then they'd been very much deep rooted in the middle class and getting towards that kind of area, and kind of had that mindset shift. And I think a big thing is at the time we have a Labour family at the time. We were, when it comes to our political kind of views, they were very conservative, and at the time it was very much button heads, the two parties were, and you could see where some of their misjudgments came from towards people and different types of people and things like that, whereas my family very much everybody mucks in, no matter who you are, and I can see maybe that kind of coming from them a little bit because of that. But I don't know for certain, but I can see it now looking back on maybe some of the times I've had with them, the looks and things like that.
Yeah. So what did he end up deciding? Did he get in debt with his mom?
No, so he took Rita in the end because my sister Katie came in and was like, this is like ridiculous. Like, what are you doing? I'm not saying this because she's my sister. Like me and my sister very like, if I've done something wrong, she will call me out and vice versa. But she was like, I can't understand your decision making now. Why would you go in debt when you haven't got a job, when my sister's willing to give you this car? And she said, he was like, Callum, if you don't like it after a year or so, just you can get rid of it or whatever you want to do. And he was like, okay, that's fine, that's fine. But yeah, it was just a weird situation to
Yeah, that is really weird.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So were there any more red flags, or are we pretty
That
much...
was it.
Or wait, I had one more question. What was the wedding planning like? Was he really involved? And what was the payment like? Because weddings are so expensive. So I'm curious, like, was he chipping in for the wedding, or was it parents?
In and out of a job. So I was saving up regularly. So he would then chip into the pot. But then when he'd lose his job, we'd go, oh, I need that bit of money for this. I need that bit of money for that. So he put money aside, but then he would need to use because, he wanted to buy this. He wanted to buy that. And I was like, it's his money. I'm not going to say no. It's not my position to say no. And I was like, I was very much in a comfortable job, very stable. I knew what I could save up. And I knew that because then he eventually got the job, like a steady job, and was training to become a government official. I was like, brilliant, fine. So I know that if either I go off or want to have time off because I want to have kids or this and that, we always knew he would step up to the mark at that point. That was always kind of something we always discussed. So I always had that in my back of mind that it's always going to kind of swing back in roundabouts. It was never...
Yes.
I'm never a 50-50 person. If I need to be 90% because they can only provide 10% at that time, I understand that's a relationship can never be 50-50.
That's life.
Yeah, exactly. It is life. So I had saved up just over 12 grand, including money that I'd lent from my dad, which was actually money he saved up for him and my mum's funeral. But the work where I work, we're a part of a share scheme. So I was able, in the October after wedding, I knew I was going to be able to pay him off a good chunk of what I owed him. So that was perfect. And then his parents, so his family, they did the wedding favours, the donut wall and the sweet cart. Other than that, the rest of it was all my money in the end.
Wow.
Yes.
That is a lot of it.
Yeah. It was a lot. And the whole kind of like deciding the wedding. So he was like, oh my God, let's go see these wedding venues. He booked going to visit these wedding venues. He then said like, let's book our cake in, let's do these colours. He made the decision of naming our tables after our favourite movies. So he was very involved in the decision making for the wedding as well. So yeah, that was also like, that wasn't a sign for me because he was so involved.
Yeah, because I mean, some grooms aren't, and they still get married,
Yeah. Yeah.
So the fact that he was very involved and wanted it to be so personalized to you guys, I wouldn't have thought anything at all.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, it was complete shock. But I'm honestly, and I mean it, thankful that he did what he did, because if he had left me the days before, I wouldn't have had the wedding party. If he left me after, then I would have been nearly 30 and divorced. And I know how hard divorce is for people, sometimes more expensive than the actual wedding.
Oh yeah, I know it can be. I've heard horror stories.
Yeah.
So can you walk me through the wedding day? So you wake up, are you just happy, feeling like not a care in the world, thinking that this is just going to be the best day of your life?
Exactly that. I was grinning year to year. So I woke up at 6:30, and I'm not a morning person, but I was up
so early.
Yeah, I was like Snow White singing to the birds. I was like, absolutely open up the doors, get the mimosas going, and let's go, girls. I was absolutely, because the night before in an Airbnb with my girls, it had been such a perfect night before the wedding. Yeah, so we're all excited. The makeup artist comes, then around 7:30, Jodie gets a call from her husband, who's the groomsman, saying, "Oh, we don't know where Callum's gone. He was with us the night before. Went to the because they stayed at the wedding venue. They were like, he went into the sea with us. We had food, we had some drinks. It was all chill. But then he said, I'm going to sleep in with my mum because I want to get a good night's sleep. And they were like, yeah, absolutely, get your good night's sleep in. And then they woke
So at
up.
her house or wherever
The
she was staying?
venue, where she was staying
okay.
in the wedding venue. So they were staying in caravans at the wedding venue.
Got it.
Sorry. I forget some of those little details, so I do apologize. And
No, you're good.
and yeah, so he was staying there, slept there, and in the morning the guys wake up, were like joking, and they were like banging on the door, going wake, wake, and then his mum practically probably walked out and was just like, yeah, we don't know where he is. Then obviously Chrissy rung Jodie, told her the story, and Jodie gathered all my bridesmaids and were like, okay, this is what's happening. What do we do? They were like, okay, we need to get Kayley's phone to see if anyone's ringing her, because they wanted to tell me rather than anyone else. So Hannah grabbed my phone, shoved it in her bra, and and all of a sudden I was like, oh, where's my girls? I was like, girls, where are you? And they were like, oh, yeah, nothing's, what's going on? I was like, I can't find my phone. And Hannah was like, let me try and find your phone with you. We were looking under like the washing bins and the bloody washing machines. She was taking me at every corner of the house, but she had it in her bra, obviously. Then she
Such a good friend, though, because I think they were probably thinking like maybe he's like having a minor freak out and we don't want to upset her or like stress you out on your wedding day. So were they calling him at this point? Like everybody's ringing him?
Exactly. So they wanted to get facts first before like people like making assumptions and whatever. So Hannah's looking for the phone. Jodie's trying to get some like more information. All the girls are like, how do we tell her? What do we tell her? And then find my phone under the bed, Hannah does. And then I realise I got like several missed calls from his mum. I automatically call her back. At the same time, she and Jodie like literally go, Callum's gone. We don't know where he is. And I was like, take a step back. I said, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. And then they tell me everything. And I'm like, okay, it's fine. Like he might have just gone for a walk, guys, and needs to clear his head. He said he doesn't need everyone ringing him and hounding him. I said, let me get his dad to ring him, because everyone needs to set up the wedding venue, because wedding decorators are quite expensive. To save money, my best friend Jodie, she made the decorations for us. So the best man and his family were to set up the actual venue, but everything had been like listed, like just directions and how to set everything up. It was all basically like foolproof for them. And so I was like,
what time was it?
This was around 8 a.m. 8 a.m.
Wow.
Yes.
So the alarms were ringing really early.
Yes. Yeah, really early. But honestly, when I heard that, I promise you, I did not even think that we were not still getting married. I was like, guys, I don't get why you're stressed. And my sister was about to cry. I was like, why are you going to cry? I was like, I'm not crying. Why should you cry? And she's like, okay. If Kayley's fine, I'm going to be fine. And that's what it was like. So I rang his dad, explained it to him. And he was like, yeah, he's probably just gone for a walk like he does, or gone for a drive. I'm sure he'll be back. And I said, brilliant. Can you just check in on him and make sure he's okay? And he was like, absolutely fine. So we carried on getting ready. I'd asked the girls not to tell my parents who had shown up, the hair artist and other people who were showing up to get us all ready, because I was like, I don't need my parents knowing that he's gone for a walk or went missing a little bit, because they'd be then concerned, rightly so, and so on. I didn't want to have to people go, a brilliant wedding day, but I can't believe he went for a walk in the morning and didn't tell anybody. I didn't want that to be the shadow.
Yeah, kind of overshadowing the rest of the good of the day. Because one thing I feel like I would be thinking too is, well, how do we know he didn't accidentally leave his phone somewhere and then he realized he forgot his tie at home? Or I don't know, just something like that.
Exactly that. And then had my makeup on, like 11:30, his dad rang me and I was in the kitchen. He was like, oh, can you go somewhere quiet? Because I couldn't hear him. I was like, yeah. Went to the utility room. My sister came in with me. And then he told me, look, Kayle, I've obviously spoken with him. He's okay. He's changed his phone number. So between like last night and this morning, he's got a new SIM card. So he's changed his number. I'm the only one who's got his number. He's okay, but he's in Portsmouth, which is 4 hours away, and you're due to get married in an hour and a half. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And he was like, I think it means he's not coming. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. Then he obviously was like, and then I heard his sister cry in the background, and his stepmom was like, look, and telling her, you have to get your dress off, I'm dressing you. And she was crying because she was excited to come to this wedding party. And I think because I heard his sister crying, and they broke the news to like his 4-year-old sister. I was like, they wouldn't tell his 4-year-old sister if it wasn't true. And I think that then made me kind of go, this is happening. Then all the girls came into the room. I was absolutely sobbing. I knew that how severe the situation was because my best friend Jodie, she's actually petrified of spiders. But there was a spider in the corner that was huge, and she stayed in the room. So I knew how severe it was because of that.
Yeah.
I can laugh back on it now, and every time she thinks it, she goes, "Oh my God, that was hanging." But we were just sobbing, and then I said, "Girls, can you give me 5 minutes?" And they were like, "Absolutely fine." I said, "Do you mind going to tell my mum, my dad, the videographer, photographer, do you mind going and telling them, well, I just have 5 minutes?" And they were like, "Absolutely." They went out. I heard obviously my mum start crying. My dad was like, "What's going on?" And I heard all of that. But then I was just kind of like in this black hole of just like devastation. Walked out because I was like, I need to get out of this Airbnb by this certain time. So like we've got to get out no matter what. We have to get out. So I went to my sister and said, look, do you mind just redoing my makeup for me, because we've got to go to the venue anyway to tell these people. I said, I just help me look pretty. And she was like, yeah, absolutely fine. And then
What are you feeling at this point? Because I feel like if I were in your position, I'd be like, just get this guy on the phone. I want to be able to talk some sense into him. Or I feel like I'd be in some sort of denial. So did you just accept it? Like, okay, no, I guess this is...
So I was completely devastated. Like I was sobbing, and I was just kind of in this world. But there was always a part of me throughout the day that thought he would still come. So I was always like the little bit of me going, oh, what if he does come? So I need like, as much as it was about me, there was always that little part of me that was always like, just in case he comes, just in case. It was just like, I was embarrassed also as well. There was a lot of embarrassment because I was like, I'm going to have to tell my family and friends are going to be like, oh my God, poor Kayley, poor this and whatever. And I've never been that type of person. I've always been quite strong and everything. So I was like, seeing people find out this news about me having no control over it, I was like embarrassed because it wasn't something that I had any control over that I can talk about. And I was like, oh God. And then as my sister was redoing my makeup, I was just talking to her and I was just like crying. I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to see my friends that I come from like Ireland and Scotland. I'm not going to see this. I was like, oh my God, my wedding cake. I really wanted to try the cookies and cream ice cake that I was having. I said, even the nacho bar, because I organised this nacho bar with like a cheese fountain, salsa, guacamole. So anybody knows me knows I love nachos. So I was like, oh my God, I was crying. I was like, I'm not going to have
choice. They're good.
I was like, I'm not even going to have my nachos. And she was like, I was just sobbing about nachos. And she was like, it's fine. And I was like, people have spent money. I've spent money. I was like, I still want to do this a little bit. And like, do I just have the party? Do I go then? She was like, well, the photographer had made a comment saying, we know how much he spent on us. So God knows how much he spent on the wedding. So why she just doesn't carry on with the party? She told me that. And I think once two men I didn't know kind of confirmed what I was feeling, I was like, okay, yeah, this might be the right thing to do. And I just did it. And as soon as I said to my sister, I think my sister was like, I'm not going to let her second guess this. We're doing it. She wants to do this.
Love it.
We need to run. She called all the girls, said, we're going to do this. And the girls like, absolutely. So then they carried on getting dressed because they were a bit like, do I get dressed? Do I not get dressed? What do I do?
Yeah, they're like, oh, now I'm rushing because apparently this is happening.
Yeah. And they're like, okay. And I was like, my video photographer, I said, look, please stay. I've paid you for the day. Stay and enjoy. I said, if you can still take pictures, because my dad and my mum have been always older. So my mum was like nearly in her 40s having me. My dad was in his late 40s. So I've always had older parents. So since a young kid, I've always been aware that time is up against me when it comes to my parents. So, and with my mum being disabled as well, that was always a part of it. So I was like, take pictures, enjoy. And in 2021, we nearly lost my mum. And one of my mum's wish, because we were about to actually like say goodbye to her, she said to my sister that I wish I could get to see Kayley get married and see Katie have my niece Ivy, because she was pregnant with my niece at the time. And that kind of also stuck with me, and I was a bit like, she's gonna see me in this wedding dress and she's gonna still be the mother of the bride. And I promise you, she lived up to that hype fully. And yeah, so after that we got the Airbnb, got down there. You probably saw my maids of honor broke the news to the guests.
Yeah, so can you explain, because I wonder how nerve-wracking that was for them. So they ended up going and having to announce to everybody.
Yes. So they were standing outside first of all. So all the bridesmaids and groomsmen stayed in like this little room beside the ceremony room, and all the guests had been asked to go sit in. They were waiting outside for me because they didn't want everyone waiting outside for me. They were like, okay, we've got them in the ceremony room as you've asked. And I said to the girls, I said, I can't go in there. I don't want to go in there, but can you tell them? And they were like, okay.
Who's gonna do it?
Yeah, they were like, who takes what? And then they literally went, okay, we're doing it. We got to do it. And they went in and they did it brilliantly. You probably saw we joke about it now with my sister Sevs, trying not to be negative in the highest pitch voice ever. And yeah,
it was so sweet. So I typically put pictures and videos that go along with the episode. So I'll put a little clip of that because it was so sweet. And they're like, please don't be negative.
Yeah.
Let's have a good time. Let's have a party.
And my guests listened. I didn't see any negativity. So like, obviously they must have talked about Callum behind doors to me, but they didn't come up to me and nobody ever asked me once, what's going on? Why has he done this? On that day, nobody asked me because they were like, she doesn't need to be asked this question right now because she's still processing. Nobody asked.
Well, and you don't even know the answers.
Exactly.
I don't know what happened with him.
Exactly. So they were like, okay, she needs to be lifted up. And that's what they did. We then went to the marquee. And the wedding coordinator was like, okay, what do you want to do? Do you still want to have the wedding moment? And I said, what moments are there? She's like, obviously the entrance, then you've obviously got speeches, then you've got cutting of the cake, you've got then obviously dancing and things like that. And I was like, okay, we're going to do the entrance. The groomsmen are joining us as well as the bridesmaids. And she's like, what song? And everyone's like, what song? And I went, Lizzo's Good as Hell. I was like, we're entering to that. It's perfect.
I'm obsessed.
It was honest. It literally just clicked in my head, and I was like, we're doing that song. And then we all entered in together, and I think that just set the mood. That was like the anthem for the day. Then they were like, this is what's going to carry us through. Then I cut the cake then with all my bridesmaids, sat on the top table with my bridesmaids, danced with the groomsmen and my brothers and my dad. And yeah, it was just an incredible day. And don't get me wrong, there was a lot of moments where it's like when we were eating my food, I looked up, and it's probably the first food I was about to have for that day. I looked up and my auntie's there sobbing and she's looking at me, and then I start sobbing and I have to take myself out. And there was always moments where I took myself out to the same place where like there was always 2 groomsmen and 2 bridesmaids that followed me. Like even the groomsmen were like following and keeping check on me throughout the day. And that happened quite regularly. And there was the point then towards the end where I think I probably was 2 bottles of tequila deep at that time. So let that be the picture.
Valid.
Yeah, exactly. Understandable. And I just started having a panic attack, and I couldn't breathe. So I started ripping this, like, wanted to take the dress off me, and I was outside in the garden, there was kids playing, and I'm trying to get naked, and the boys were like, no, stop, and they'd be like, and Jodie's like, no, if she wants to get undressed, let her get undressed. She's get the kids in, she needs to take this off. So Jodie starts undressing me. Hannah's then running to get my pajamas to put on, so I've got something to wear. And the boys, then the groomsmen, lift their jackets and cover me as I'm getting undressed. And yeah, I had no bra on, had like so my sister had bought me cycling shorts to wear underneath, and they had these smiley faces on. So I was there standing braless with just these cycle shorts on, just having a massive panic attack. And I was like, I'm gonna laugh about this later, but at this moment, but yeah, I can just, that is always
but
an
I
image.
love it because they were like, if she wants to take it off, then take it off, and we'll figure it out. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly that. And then I got into my pajamas, which was like a shirt and my joggers, and carried on dancing. And then went to the bridal suite with Jodie and Hannah. They stayed the night with me in the room. Spewed my guts up at 4:00 in the morning. Went down for breakfast, and I think that's when reality hits the most. The biggest kind of explanation I can give what I felt. So when someone passes away and you've got the funeral, you've got the build up to the funeral, you've got the funeral day, you've got everyone kind of pouring this love on you and there for you and whatever. The next day, everyone's going back to their life. And that next day, what life was I?
You're still there.
Yeah, I was still there. Like, I'm not a wife. My name is exactly the same. What have I got to do? I was like, I've lost this identity of who I was meant to be and who my husband was going to be. So it was very much like a hit the wall moment.
During the wedding day and the day after, but during the wedding day, were you feeling like there was any chance that you guys would work it out later on?
So that's probably why I had the panic attack. So throughout the whole day, I always had the back of my mind, God, what if he does show up? Let's make sure it's all good and things, just in case he shows up or whatever. And I think then it became towards like midnight, and I was like, I'd gone through all this wedding day, and I was like, reality hit me, and I was like, I can't take him back. I was like, if I ever took him back, I would be embarrassed of myself. Like, I'd be so ashamed that I would take somebody back who would do this to me, who would let me face this storm on my own with no consideration for how I felt or how my family felt, and no consideration for actually wanting to talk to me about the situation. That's why I had the panic attack, because I was like, God, I can't ever, like, I could never be with this person
like,
again.
how do you come back from this?
Exactly.
And I feel like I had a similar circumstance with, I don't know if you know my story a little bit, but I was with my ex, and it was a domestic violence relationship. And he had strangled me after this horrible situation. We had a huge blowout at Disney, and I had really kept our relationship under wraps and like not told my family. And I feel like the moment that it hit me for the first time was the first time I told somebody, because it was that same thing of like, you're saying, well, I can't take him back after this. Like, I can't, even if there was an option. And I feel like when I told my family my situation and what was actually going on, then it feels real, because it's like, okay, this isn't something that we can just hide behind closed doors. This is, now everybody knows, everybody would hate him. And, how do you even move past that? So yeah, it's overwhelming. That's a very overwhelming moment for sure.
It must have been horrific for you. And I understand, because prior to the relationship I had, I would be in a similar situation with actually a same name, Callum, but Callum with a C, and this was Callum with a K.
Way.
So after these two Callums,
it's a bad omen.
Yeah, my friend said, you're not going in near any Callum. I said, yeah, even if they spell a name with a Q, I'm Qualum. Do you mean? Yeah, not for me.
Done.
And he had been, so I get you 100%. I think that was my realized moment where because I'm a very much a person where I will try with somebody. And I think that's when that day was kind of a little bit of that, like, I'm going to try this, carry on with this, do this. And then it was like, I can't try anymore.
Yeah.
And then you realize once you kind of put it out there to the world, that it's out there, you can't take it back.
Yeah. And I love what you said about the next day. That's such a good analogy, the funeral thing, because it's so true that people don't realize how long grief lasts. So yes, it was amazing that you had all of this love coming towards you on this wedding day, but then it's like, okay, but what does my life look like after this? Because you guys were living together, you had a whole future plan. I mean, I'm sure even your finances are surrounded around this idea of like, now we're going to be dual income. I mean, all of this sort of stuff. And now you just have to somehow move on while also trying to work through all of this heartbreak that you have.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Did you ever hear from him again? Like, did you ever find out why he left or anything?
Nothing. I don't know still to this day why he left. So I came back home after the wedding. All his stuff was here. So I was like, okay, that shows me how last minute his decision making was, because all his stuff was here, like his work uniform, passport, everything of importance was here. So packed up his stuff, dropped it off to his dad. I kept his work uniform because it was a police uniform, and in between that conversation, his dad had told me that he had no contact with him, didn't know what was going on, didn't know whether he was going to go back to work. So I was like, God, if he doesn't go back to work and then I hand this work uniform, this government property, to any Tom, Dick or Harry, and doesn't get handed back in, they're going to be knocking on my door. They got my address. So I was like, I'm going to keep it handed to the police station. And then as I got back after dropping his stuff off, my brother had taken his work uniform, was like, look, I'll deal with this. You don't deal with it. I'll sort it out for you. And I was like, thank you, Craig. Brilliant. His dad rang me. Jodie answered my phone because I was away at the time, and she was like, what do you mean you've spoken to Callum? And I came up and was like, what's going on? He was like, well, Callum's asking for his work uniform and he's concerned that he hasn't got it. His dad hasn't got it with him. And I was like, but his dad told me he hadn't spoken to him, or didn't know what he was doing work-wise. And obviously George reiterated that, and he was like, oh, I lied. I didn't want to tell Kayley that I spoke to him. I was like, I know, but if you had just told me, I would have
included it.
Yeah, exactly. And I said, do you know what, though? Actually, it's with my brother now. Call my brother. And my brother said to his dad, I'm not going to hand this auto over to anybody until Callum gives me a ring, just so I can shout to him, just so I can vent and shout. Then Callum got his auntie, his uncle, his best friend, his dad, whoever, to ring and message my brother other than himself. And then like around towards the end of the night, he had finally rung my brother, and my brother was just like, I honestly, like, it's laughable. Like, all I wanted to do is shout at you over the phone. I couldn't hit you. I couldn't physically harm you. All I wanted to do was, like, all I would have done is shout at you, and you couldn't even have the guts to do that.
No, because the whole thing is so cowardly. I feel like, I don't know, maybe on TV, you hear where people will leave a letter or they'll call them or something. It's like he didn't do anything. No, he completely ghosted. And him changing his phone number. Yeah. I mean, one of my questions was going to be, do you think that he had planned it because he had already changed his phone number? But I guess since his passport and everything were there, I guess he didn't.
That's where it's very like they contradict each other. The fact that all his stuff was here, but then he knew to get a different SIM card. He thought that much about it, but he didn't think about his passport. So it was very contradictory in his behaviour. I think it's prime of who he is as a person. I don't think he knows who he actually is as a person. I think he's believes his own lies. Obviously he does, because he delivers them well enough that I believe them. That he messaged me after speaking to my brother going, please get your brother to do the right thing and give my uniform back, which was insane in itself that he actually wrote those sentences. And he
that was, so you did hear from him that one time?
Yes, when he asked for his work uniform back, and he said he'd sent me a letter explaining why. Never received the letter, and I know my parents or family members wouldn't have kept that letter from me because they would have wanted to know why. So never sent the letter. But yeah, and after that, never heard back from him. He didn't even try and reach out to me after my mum passed away, and he had known my mum for like nearly 4 years. None of that. So his family sent me flowers, but they addressed the flowers to my dad and family. So I said to Brian and family.
That makes me so mad, because I guess maybe it's their embarrassment coming out that they know that your parents probably helped with the wedding costs. So they're like, we're sorry to your parents.
Yeah.
But they should that should be addressed to you and
Yeah,
family,
yeah.
not your dad.
100%. And it was just lovely flowers, really nice flowers, but like not even like because at that point then I had blocked his phone number because I was like, if he's not going to reach out, fine. And then, but even still, like if I wanted to get in touch with somebody that badly because it's the right thing, he would have done whatever. But yeah, he turned out to be this completely different character and person, and I didn't know what narcissism and all that was at that time, but then I started learning about it. I went to therapy and all that because of it, and I learned some things about myself. And I think you kind of, as I said, it is very much easier looking outside in than when you're in the relationship. Ego point of view from everything is so much easier to pinpoint things here and there, but when you're in it, and you probably experience yourself, it's the emotions that can very much sugarcoat things, and you'll live in that.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that people don't realize is narcissists are so good at hiding who they are for a long time. Like you would think that it would take, or that their true side would come out soon, but it's like they can really keep it together if they want to
100%.
keep it going, and they're good at living double lives. I ended up speaking to the woman who dated my ex-husband after me, and for an entire year he love bombed this woman. Her husband had just passed away.
Oh my
He
gosh.
loved bomb her. He would do her laundry, tuck her into bed at night, pray with her for an entire year, and was like, I just want to be here for you during your grief. And then the second they started dating, he turned abusive.
Oh no.
And it's like, they could commit to a bit.
Oh,
like
yeah.
they really can.
Yeah.
You know, so
That's one thing they can commit to.
Yes. Commit to the lie. And I'm
Yeah.
like, to some level, I still don't know, like, how much do they believe? I don't know if my ex thinks he's a good person. I wouldn't be surprised if he does think he's a good person.
100%. I think I agree with you. I think he believes he's a good person. Like I think, and because I know that a little bit because his family, because they didn't stay for the wedding day. I didn't have my phone or anything like that at the time because I was like, I'm going to leave my phone aside. The day after I saw the messages from his family, and they're like, I'm so sorry this has happened to you. But then they were going into defending him. I'm like, you can't defend somebody for, you can obviously absolutely agree with somebody walking away from a situation they don't want to be in, 100%. But how can you defend somebody to not speak to me? Do you know what I mean? To actually come and tell me face to face and give me the courtesy of saying goodbye and that bit of closure. And they were trying to defend that. And I was like, it's all ingrained and must be in that family situation. Like, I'm sorry, if my son or family member, friend had done something wrong, I would have gone, look, they've done wrong. I can't say anything to defend them to you, but I'm sorry for what they've done. And that would be it. Like,
yeah, and you're not asking them to hate him or disown him. I mean, they can say, we love him and he was 100% wrong and it was indefensible. I was curious, so the groomsmen that stayed, were they his friends?
Yeah.
So, wow, so they had your back when he left. And did any of his people stay on the wedding day?
So all his family left. So one of the groomsmen was his uncle. So he left. So they had his cousin who was like 8 years old at the time. She was autistic and obviously probably was really upset. And I think was in a situation that she could cope with. Understandably, I always get why they would have left completely. And then the groomsmen stay in. Honestly, they could never understand what they did for me, especially because of Chris and Kai were the ones that were in the car when I had spoken to Cal about his behaviour on his stag do. So that on the day, because that was the only day I could really recall of that we had an argument at the time, I was like, oh my God, was I awful saying that? I shouldn't have said it in front of them too. I must have been such an incredible, like, what have I done? And the fact that them two stayed and they were actually sobbing and they're like, I'm so sorry what's happened. I don't get what's gone on. That gave me so much more reassurance. And they could never understand what they did for me on that day.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love seeing all of the videos and everything. And I'm wondering, what was it like just healing after this? So how would you say your healing journey has happened? And I believe you said that you are in a new relationship,
I am,
right?
yes.
Yay!
So my boyfriend now I actually known him since 2013. So we went to uni together. So in first year of uni, he asked me out. I said no. Third year of uni, I asked him out. He said no. And that was because of, like, we were very much in a places where we want to find ourselves in those moments and whatever. So it was very understandable at that point. Now in a very amazing relationship together. Like, he is a very honest man, sometimes too honest. Like, when I put a shirt on, he doesn't think it looks good on me. He's like, I don't think that is right on you. Maybe another one. And I'm like,
too honest.
Yes, I felt myself then. But yeah, so after it was honestly a roller coaster. And I think in some way putting my story out there on like social media actually helped me as well at the same time, because it gave me the distraction. Once that died down, I think that's when like reality again restruck. I kind of went to therapy about it, had a lot of deep talks about it, a lot more crying. And I think I just allowed myself time. I think I'm not a compassionate person to myself. When it comes to others, I'm like, girl, you need to take your time, breathe, eat your ice cream, enjoy. When it comes to me, I'm like, I can't eat my ice cream, I can't watch movies, I can't cry about it, I can't do this, because it's just not who I am to myself. And then when I went to therapy, we talked about all of that. And then I started to kind of find my own self-compassion and allow myself to grieve. I think when my therapist told me this is grief, that's when it struck me, because I thought grief is like somebody dying, and that's the only ever grief that exists. And she's like, no, there's grief in loss of a relationship, loss of financial situation, jobs, so loss of anything can be grief. And that's when I allowed myself to grieve.
And discovering of even more lies. We're not going to get into it, but I mean, just realizing that you didn't really know him
this person.
as much as you thought you did.
100%.
Which you're so kind to not air out the details. I'm not so kind. I'm all over saying everything.
I may do one time, but it's just more so I was very lucky that I got myself back in a situation which was fine. And because my friend, I didn't realize at the time, she set up a GoFundMe, because that was one thing I'd lost all my savings. Obviously I had to pay my dad back. I had other bits and bobs that we had lined up for whatever. And I was like she knew how hard I worked for it. So she set up a GoFundMe, which I didn't expect, which in the first thing I felt really weird receiving it. But my sister said to me, if people didn't want to give you money or donate money, then they wouldn't. So whatever. And honestly, that then, which people don't realize, helped me in the situation financially, recouping from the situation he put me in.
Yeah. So did you get a good amount from the GoFundMe?
So about 13,000, which is a huge amount of money. So
Thank God.
I know. So GoFundMe take their part, the percentage of it. Then I used it to pay off some of the debt that I was in due to situations. And then I used it to then go on a holiday, the rest of what was left, to go to New York with my best friend Lynn.
Nice.
So went to New York because during our relationship we always talked about places we wanted to go, and New York was never on his list because he'd been once and he said he didn't like it. And I'm a theatre girl, so I've loved like Broadway and all that is like... Did
you go see shows?
Yes. So that was
What'd
all...
What'd you see?
Wicked, of course. That was it. I
saw Wicked on Broadway too when I was like 14. So
and
good.
I think that was it for me. I think that was my moment of like self-love again, because like I can do stuff now that I want to do that I wasn't going to do, and I was actually willing to compromise on because of somebody I loved. So now it's my turn to love me, and that was kind of part of my discovery. And the GoFundMe actually helped me do that, which was selfish in a way, but it helped me in so many other ways.
No, I mean, people wanted to give it to you to help you in your healing. So.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It just felt weird at first because like there's so many different GoFundMes and for so many different situations. I think that was a part of my discovery as well, is not comparing myself to others, because I'm a big comparer. So like my mother's very much been the type of person that so for example, you're not starving, you're hungry, because there's other people out there that have no food on the table and are much more worse positions than you. So she would always have that comparison with me. And I took that as a kid and I blew it out of proportion throughout all of life. I can't cry over this because there's people who's got cancer, there's people who's in this situations. And like that was a part of therapy, of learning that I'm allowed to be sad in whatever situation that makes me sad in. Just because there's other people out there in much worse situations doesn't mean I can't be sad.
Yeah. There's not a limited amount of sadness that can be felt in the world. Sorry, it's taken up by all the real problems and my problems are not legitimate.
Exactly that. And I think that's when I kind of was like, what are you talking about, saying stuff like that to yourself? And I think that's something that like me and my mother had to work through as well. So because I was a young carer going through therapy, I realised that I've always been a mother, and I think that's what I've realised in relationships. I am a mother, so I will put myself last in every situation. I'll go shopping for them first, then shopping for myself, and so on. I do that in my relationships, and I've realised that's what I do. And I kind of had that bit of like, not resentment, but bit of like thing towards my mum, because of that's something that I got from her. So then we had to work it through, and I'm glad that we got to work that through before she passed away. But
I'm so sorry.
It's one of those situations. So I'm actually thankful that it happened away, because I've done a lot of like rediscovering of myself that I'm so glad has happened.
That's awesome. What advice would you give to anybody who is like in a similar circumstance, or if you have any books that have helped you or anything like that through therapy? Songs
of what helped me going through therapy.
Really?
Yes. So there's this incredible artist called Kat Burns in the UK. So there was a song that she's got called Sleep at Night, and that listen to that on repeat. And then some music and films are a big part of me. That's what I watch. But my advice to anybody is literally just don't be defined by what happens to you. You define yourself by how you overcome it and how you react to it. The actual thing itself doesn't define you. And that's my thing for everybody, and that's what I want to live by. It's the journey that's defining me.
Yeah, you are such a strong person. I mean, you're just incredible. You have such a presence about you, and I love how empowering your story is. I know when I saw it on TikTok, I knew that I had to reach out to you.
Also, I love what you're doing, by the way. Your Instagram and your TikTok is incredible, and I think it's needed. So you're doing an incredible job, and I'm honoured that you even reached out to me in the first place. So yeah, coming on with pimple patches on, massive forehead, and red.
Oh, stop.
Yeah.
Forehead where? What are you talking about?
Oh, it's a Sunday, okay? It's hair wash day today. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so thankful. And that's it for this episode of Healedish. And I am so thankful to Kayley for coming on and sharing her story. If you want to see more of her story and videos from the wedding reception, you can find her on TikTok at Kayley Stead, and I will link her profile in the show notes. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share it, rate it, and leave a review. And if you're interested in sharing your story on the podcast, I will include a link for you to submit your story. I'll see you guys next week for another episode of Healedish.